order. This is a joint hearing with the committees on Energy, Ways and Means, and Finance. On the agenda today are SBNs 217-486, 1612, and 2348, amending the Electric Power Industry Reform Act, otherwise known as IPIRA, of 2001, filed by Senators Tulfo, Gatchalian, and Villanueva, and Senate Bill number 487, Energy Regulatory Commission Governance Act by Senator Gatchalian. So I know it's a complex bill, a complex law, and given the amount of time that we have before Congress goes on break in February, everyone has told me that there's not enough time to completely amend IPIRA. So what we will do to ensure that we do have time to amend some substantive provisions is to focus on amending the provisions that affect the ERC. So what I'd like to do for an orderly flow of our discussion is to ask everyone, we're focusing on ERC, and if your particular agency that you represent does not have any, direct, specific contributions to that discussion, then you still have the floor. You can just quickly summarize general concerns you have on IPIRA. Okay? My general rule in all my hearings are don't read your position papers to me. That's my job, to read the position papers when I'm on my own time. During this hearing, you just summarize these concerns, point out what is the most important, emote, that is fine, to really express your grave concerns about the issues at hand, but don't read the position paper to me. Just tell me it's there, and I will take care of reading that myself. Yeah, so that's our objective for today. And just for the sake of the public that can watch us, our goal, of course, is energy security. Our goal is that people have access to electricity in a reliable manner and not intermittent energy like the sunlight. And we need our regulatory bodies to be on the ball, to be able to react quickly and not 3 years later and not 5 years later. I am new to this. Most of you have been here longer than me, but I know enough to know that this contributes to the problem, that our regulatory bodies are not able to efficiently resolve pending approvals that are with them, are not able to address concerns that are being raised. So that's what our goal is in the long run. I know you have had initial hearings in the House. I have a copy of the working draft of the House. It's not officially part of the bills because it's not a bill. It's a working draft of the House. But I think most of you are involved in that process, are aware of what these are. So we're not bound by that. This is a totally separate hearing for those who are not familiar with how the Senate and House hearings go. Totally separate, but in the interest of being efficient, we are mindful of the progress that you have all made in the House discussions. We're not bound by it, but we are mindful of it. I trust the expertise of our technical people. That is not my area of expertise. My expertise is drafting laws. So I will be listening to you. I have an open mind about what needs to be done. Okay, so very quickly, some administrative matters. I'm very lenient in my hearings. You can stand up to stretch your legs. You can go to the restroom. You can eat. You can drink. I'm happy to know that, well, at least not to see any PET bottles. The Senate is trying to be as sustainable as possible. If you need more water, we have pages, or you can get up. But let's try to be mindful of sustainability. And when food is served, feel free to eat. else? That's it? Okay, so as I said, we will focus. I would like the discussion to focus on strengthening ERC. But again, if you have other comments, this is not a line by line of the bill because we don't have a working draft officially. Just give your comments and say there are other concerns that you want to address. There are time limits for each speaker. And this is not the only hearing we're going to have, so don't be worried that you won't be able to say everything you want to say. A lot of the discussions also happen outside of the hearing room. So this is really just officially so that your agency can make known your position on these issues. Okay, so we'll start with DOE, followed by ERC, and then NEA. So for DOE, is it you, Yusek Sharon? Okay, so you and ERC have 10 minutes each, and then everybody else has 5. And if you have nothing to say about ERC, then you can limit your statements for now, and we can proceed to discussions that focus on the ERC. Okay?
Yes,
The
ma'am.
floor to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We won't take up too long. We'll just we have discussed it with the ERC already, and we have participated in the House hearings also. Although likewise we're mindful of the direction of the House, but we are coming up with together with the ERC an executive version to facilitate also the discussions in the committee.
So, so just to be clear, so the draft that I have, which I'm told has your input, you still have more input.
The draft that you have, ma'am, is based, the reference bill is the committee version of the House.
Okay.
So, but
So
not,
I'll just wait for you to also give me more or a separate one. Okay, no problem.
the House's version includes nine commissioners instead of 5. So it's going to increase, and in that sense, Madam Chair, we leave it to ERC to determine how many they want. Kasi iba yung idea ng ERC, ma'am.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
But with due respect to the House, we follow their version. The main input of the DOE, we leave it to ERC on the part of their organization. The main input of DOE is the use of benchmarking. Kasi the delays is very, it can span from few months to a decade. So to lessen the burden on the quasi-judicial function, kasi yun yung nagpapahaba dahil mag-hearing pa, presentation of evidence, halos lahat na sinasubmit sa ERC. So one idea is to benchmark the prices, especially for power supply agreements. And then once you're in the benchmark, dapat summary hearing na lang siya. The determination lang is did they comply with the procurement process follows the principles that are established by DOE, competitive, transparent, non-discriminatory. So pag na-certify na
within let me interrupt you, no? I'm mindful that compared to 10 years ago where we didn't have these live hearings for even students to watch, they might be lost because no, it's okay. I know enough to understand where you're going, but let me preface this discussion. So let's give an example. ERC, EPIRA dictates that ERC needs to give an approval when for example, I'm just using one example, a distribution utility, ito yung, let's say, electric cooperative, wants to increase their rates. Correct so far, right? So they have to approve that. So that's a very typical approval that is lined up, and there's a lot, right? All lining up with ERC to get their approval to do that. So ERC, mindful of consumer welfare, will study all these documents, correct? They'll study all the documents, all the submissions, determine if there is really a necessity to increase the prices, a necessity and justification to increase. So what you're saying now is that, so what I'd like you to start with is, why don't you tell us what are, and I think we do have consumer groups who'll speak later on, but generally, so establish the problems, which is number one, it takes so long. Maybe you can give some examples, like what are the kind of delays that are factually currently happening? What is the fastest? What is the longest? So we establish what is the problem. No? Kasi I know all of you here are so deeply involved that you can go straight to your suggestions. But let's lay the basis first, so that even when I present this to my colleagues and their staff, I think a lot of them have staff here because we do have some colleagues of ours who are attending the Interparliamentary Union in Geneva, which I normally go to, but I'm not there this time. Then they can also follow the discussion. So let's establish first why we want to amend, and why the clamor is to focus on ERC. What is not working? What can we do better? And then what are the suggestions? So yun lang, just to add to let's assume that we're talking to high school students who need to understand what we're trying to do. Okay. So rewind tayo
Alright.
dyan.
Repeat. So ang ERC kasi siya yung nag-a-approve ng rates, no? Ng presyo ng distribution, generation, transmission, and kung anong binabayaran ng
Okay, I want to clarify that also. Even on the Senate floor, there have been privileged speeches where iko-call out yung isang cooperative na ba't nagtaas ng presyo, ang mahal-mahal ng presyo. And just from your statement, which I unfortunately had to interrupt you, you're already pointing out that the prices are not just based on the price set by that cooperative. Establish din natin yun para naiintindihan ng tao na ano ba ang basis ng presyo na sinisingil sa inyo nung electric, well, for many people outside of the highly urbanized, pero minsan highly urbanized na electric cooperative din, which is another discussion, no? Let's help them understand what drives the prices. So medyo balik tayo sa like 101 talaga, yeah, or even 1.
So, mangyari yun, pag tinitignan mo yung electric bill mo, naka-indicate yan dyan, naka-specify. Transmission, generation, ang dami pa niyan, pati distribution. Pag tinignan mo yung bill mo from Meralco, makikita niyo dyan, marami may taxes. So, lahat niyan, dumadaan yan, kasi ang protection ng consumer, consumer welfare, the one who protects that is ERC, which means as much as possible the cheapest electricity that can approve. Yun yung mandate sa kanila. Ang least cost, ang golden rule yan. So pag nag-produce ka ng electricity, at pag ako Meralco, kailangan ko ng supplier ng electricity ko. Papasok ako niya ng power supply agreement. And the rate, yung rate niyan, kung anong ang agreement niyo, approve mo na ng ERC. Pero ang nangyayari, minsan kasi sa tambak, I'm not sure how many electric co-ops, over 100, and then many private also. So, hindi lang kasi ang power supply agreement sina-approve. Halimbawa, bibili sila ng capital, ng equipment, no? Or any other expenses na related na may effects sa presyo ng kuryente, kailangan i-approve ng ERC yan. Marami pang, other than power supply agreements, ERC approves even ang mga yearly or annual submissions na kailangan nila, or any transactions na will affect yung presyo ng electricity. So, ERC, whenever they receive a report or even a case fina-file sa kanila, ang powers ng ERC, decision-making niya, is done through a quasi-judicial decision. Quasi-judicial means para siyang korte. Mag-file ng petition, magsasubmit ng evidence, papatawag sila sa hearing. I think most of it is public pa, parang may, parang transparent siya. So, It can range, minsan yan, kasi yan mga ilang may specific days yan eh. Pero hindi kaya. Kasi kahit simple submission lang, it has to go through the whole procedure of a quasi-judicial proceeding. Pero napansin namin, based on analysis, well, so nangyayari, I can't speak for the co-ops or for the distribution utilities. Minsan yan, may mga applications sila na natatapos naman within the year. Minsan, 10 years, naghihintay pa sila ng approval. In fact, even ang NGCP, affected din yan. May mga submissions din sila na delay din. Ang epekto po yan, Madam Chair, halimbawa, hihingi sila ng permission ng approval ng ERC sa isang project. Pag ma-delay mo yung approval na yan, yung presyo kasi, halimbawa 2010 humingi ka ng approval, tapos madi-delay siya halimbawa 10 taon, 2020 na. Ang presyo ng project, so mas mahal na ng 2020. So affected yung presyo talaga ng consumers natin. So ang delay is costing our people kasi yung nagiging mahal din yung ating electricity. So para ma-avoid to, hindi naman yan intentional on the part of ERC, but it's just that talagang dumami na talaga yung cases at saka nag-COVID pa and many other reasons I don't want to explain for them na, no? Pero the fact is meron talagang delay and to lower the price, to keep it lower, no? Hindi naman talaga iyan lang yung problema ng electricity natin, but this will help lower the price of electricity pag inayos yung system ng ERC. So, ang napansin namin, sa ERC, marami silang hinahandle na quasi-judicial. Annual submissions ng mga distribution utilities. Yung parang regular submissions. It goes through the whole process also. So, we have started identifying, we're still refining, Madam Chair, kung ano ba yun yung mga usual na hindi na kailangan siguro ng quasi-judicial procedure. And assign that na lang to the chairman of the ERC. Parang administrative na lang
Exactly. I
siya.
was about to say, so it's just administrative.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
submit it within 30 days. If you don't get a response, it's deemed approved, right? Something like that. Okay.
Na,
So those are a bit of fine details that we the committee will need from the technical, like, and I definitely want to hear both from the regulatory agencies and also the other sectoral representatives who are all part of the process, the applicants themselves, etc.
ang next is, okay, the other half, which is public power supply agreements. Yun yung pag nagkontrata sila ng power. Mahaba kasi yan kasi talagang ina-analyze ng maayos mga economists, engineers, lahat ng experts ng ERC. So, minsan yan humahaba talaga. Yun yung pinakamahaba. So, many of the suggestions in the House of Representatives, which we have also considered, is use benchmarking. So, kung ang benchmarking kasi, sabihin mo, meron akong lowest at highest, no? Kung pasok ka doon sa lowest and highest, dapat hindi na siya full adjudicatory process. Kasi pasok na naman siya, hindi na siya nag-aabuso, hindi sobrang mahal, hindi rin sobrang mura, no? Ipapasok lang siya sa benchmark. Pag nag-apply yung distribution utility, halimbawa Meralco, because Meralco is in front of me. Meralco applies and it is within the benchmark. Tapos, mapoprove nila na sinunod nila yung fair, transparent procurement process. Dapat hindi na siya full-blown na may hearing, presentation of evidence at lahat-lahat. Kundi ano nila siya, summary procedure, which will be shorter. Yun yung basic namin na suggestion on the IPIRA amendment on ERC. And the second, ma'am, is the increase of penalties. Okay, so ang penalties kasi sobrang liit. I think ang maximum is 5 million. 5 million for a big distribution utility or even NGCP. Sobrang liit lang. Ilang minuto lang yan. In fact, per violation pa yan. So, pag halimbawa, yung violation nila, nag-blackout halimbawa sa panay ng 4 na araw, isang violation lang yan. So, we wanted to increase the violation to 500 million, ang maximum. Kasi we're considerate also of the smaller distribution utilities. So meron din siyang mas maliit na base, no? Ang kagandahan niyan, at which we have discussed with the ERC, is ERC can also rule na imbes na magbayad kayo ng penalty, pwede niyo yung gamitin for refund or bawas sa bayad ng electricity ng tao, ng bill nila. It's one way, that's something that ERC still has to study. But kailangan pa yung ano niya lang, yung logistics niya kung paano gagawin. But it's an idea that we have came up with ERC na part of the penalty, kung pwede naman applicable lang, ibalik na lang sa tao. And that's what, kasi yun yung clamor ng taga Iloilo, ng Panay, na billions, they lost billions in their businesses, and how do you compensate that? And that could be done through this mechanism. So those are the two basic suggestions we have. And the organizational, we leave it to ERC. Ang ano lang kasi, on the penalties, we are trying to come up with what is the penalty, how do you define economic sabotage as far as energy is concerned, na kung ang impact ng fault ng any of the industry players is considered economic sabotage, then we maximize the penalty. And as far as DOE is concerned, that's where we analyzed the IPIRA on the chapter of ERC, ma'am. Yun lang. Thank you.
I was just discussing with my team what how you intend, if they're familiar with how you intend to amend the economic sabotage law, because or you'll make it applicable, because I'm not aware pa naman na may nananadyang participant in this whole sector na but by gross negligence, yeah, it may result in that. So it's a little bit different. Like you said, you have to study that, no? Okay. I mean, it can result in very grave consequences, as it has in Panay and any area that has experienced this. But yeah, just study that carefully. Okay. Hi, good morning. Good morning, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian. I'll let you settle in, but anytime you want to make a statement, just let me know. Okay. Okay. So we'll go now to ERC, Attorney Baldo Digal. So they're just giving their general statements on why this the review of IPIRA is important. But I had made an earlier manifestation that we will only have time to really focus on ERC. So that's really the focus of this discussion. But you know, everybody else is welcome to just make of record their concerns on IPIRA, but the focus is really ERC. Okay, Attorney Baldo Digal.
Yes, Madam Chair, good morning. Allow me to just take off from what Yusek Garin of the DOE has already discussed. First, on the backlog of the ERC, and then connected to the provisions of the IPIRA amendment that we are trying to spouse. First, on the backlog, at present we have around 6,000 cases. 3,000 of those would be cases or applications filed by different regulated entities. The other half will be as a result of our monitoring and enforcement powers, which is the result of the show cause orders that we have issued to erring industry stakeholders. So for us, we would like to ask support for the IPIRA amendments that would give authority to the Energy Regulatory Commission to undertake periodic restructuring and reorganization of the agency. We are only manned now by around 300 plantilla positions. We are complemented by at least another 300 which are contractual employees. So, Madam Chair, we're like only half are plantilla or regular employees. The rest, the other support group will be half of the agency also. Okay. And on the permitting section of the provisions of the EPIRA, we would want that there be clarity and express language on the permitting function that would allow ERC uh, to allow only at the staff level, even the issuance of permit through delegated authority, because as of now, even certificate of compliance or the COCs of the GENCOs are elevated to the five-man commission and bank. But recently, we have adopted an ad hoc committee composed only of 3 commissioners with whom the COC applications will be evaluated. And then the COC itself gets signed by the chair so that it cuts layers of work.
I have a quick question. Are there any applications for anything, any processes that are approved by like a non-commissioner, or everything goes to the commission?
As of now, almost everything goes to at least 3 of members of the
Ridiculous.
commission.
Yeah.
That's one thing we are trying to
That doesn't make sense, no? I mean, I'm sure there are lower level uh, applications for whatever permits that can be handled by competent directors
Yeah.
naman, no? That's for sure. So you can distinguish this, no? Because your first statement on 6,000 cases, 3,000 are
applications, Your Honor.
applications, and then the 3,000s are basically ongoing cases because of show cause orders
Monitoring,
that they
Your
have
Honor.
been receiving. You're saying that are you actually saying that the first 3,000 may be addressed even by the benchmarking, or not
Yes.
necessarily? Yeah.
Yes, because of the 3,000, Madam Chair, I think 1,000 plus will be rate cases that
Rate
will
cases.
cover power
Okay.
supply agreement applications, Your Honor.
Okay. And the others are, how would you describe the other cases?
Consumer complaints are also with the
But that's
commission.
part of the first 3,000, or that's part of the second 3,000?
First 3,000.
Consumer complaints, doon din
Yes.
yun?
Yes, of all distribution utilities, Your Honor.
So these are like overcharging, mga ganon.
Yes, and service complaints, Your Honor.
That goes to the commission pa?
Yes, as long as a consumer files a but what we have done recently for consumer complaints is to create
Parang
another
sinabi na yung DTI, which also receives a lot of complaints, and I'm happy to note that they're quite empowered. I've received good feedback compared to like 10 years ago na no action. Parang mo sinabing lahat yun pupunta sa DTI secretary.
Yeah. But as of now, Madam Chair, what we did is to assign 1 commissioner, at least for a certain threshold of consumer complaints, because it involves sometimes small amounts, but sometimes also big amounts. We have around 618 consumer complaints.
Okay, sige. Just give me a breakdown of all these cases, no, the categories. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair. And then on the another amendment that we would seek support is giving ERC limited fiscal autonomy. This will allow the Commission to retain a portion of its income for certain purposes such as capital outlay, training, and innovation initiatives, all of which are aimed at ensuring agility of the regulator in regulating a dynamic and evolving industry. We lose our staff to the industry that we regulate because they offer better salaries and benefits, Your Honor. And also, we are exempted from the salary standardization law. However, we are not able to fully at least take advantage of the EPIRA provision that allows us to annually submit a adjusted rates or salary compensation levels for our staff. We were not able to enjoy the annual adjustment, Your Honor. We try every year with DBM, but I think our last adjustment was in 2018, Your Honor, and 2020. But I think as of now, our level is just the last was 2023, but we're almost the same as the SSL level now. So it doesn't it's not, I don't want to say it did not serve the purpose, but we are not able to fully utilize it, the
But if your
provision.
level is same as SSL, then it does not,
Yeah.
that exemption
Almost,
from
yeah.
SSL does
Yeah.
not, is not being taken
Yes,
advantage
yeah.
of.
And then on the authority to direct the application of fines and penalties towards the lowering of rates affected by actions of erring stakeholders, we would like also to ask support for this, because now, um, aside from the penalty is a bit low, that's why we also support the updating of the rates of penalties. This goes straight to the National Treasury. It does not even go to ERC. It goes straight to the National Treasury. The proposal of ERC is to allow the erring stakeholder to use it to lower its rates to the customers affected by their violation, which is the Panay event. Um, those are the four major, Madam Chair, Your Honor, for ERC. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Our next speaker will be from the National Electrification Administration, and it's Attorney Rosero Lee. And then please prepare after NEA will be PEMC, and then the Independent Electricity Market Operator of the Philippines. Go ahead, Attorney
Yes.
Rosero Lee.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Senator Gatchalian, and to all the guests, our colleagues from the government service here and the private sector. Now, Madam Chair, insofar as Senate Bill 487 is concerned, the national electrification uh, is fully supportive of the or the enhancing the governance and structure of ERC, and hereby manifests that we are adopting the proposals of the Department of Energy, much on the aspect as we re-echo the concerns of the electric distribution utilities that our agency supervises. The the addition of the 5% man commission of the ERC to the proposed 9 member commission would really expedite, as we are hopeful that specifically on the approval of power supply agreements and CAPEX applications will be will be addressed dramatically, if I may use the term, considering that indeed, as already manifested earlier by Yusek Garin, it takes not just a couple of years, but in fact decades before the commission would be able to approve in finality. I am the agency is very much aware that it runs not just decade, but decades that power supply agreements of electric cooperatives are finally approved, as well as CAPEX, and that has been the concern brought to us by majority of the electric cooperatives. Also, in this concern, we have, as already also mentioned by Yusek Garin earlier, the House version of the amendment, specifically on the provisions relating to ERC, have been discussed during the public hearings conducted at the House of Representatives, and also we have manifested our full support on the proposed amendments thereto. If I may, Madam Chair, considering that we are given at least 5 minutes, if I can go to other provisions, just so we can articulate in advance, other than Senate Bill 487. Yes, okay, ma'am. For Senate Bill 2348, it just the particular specific provisions that NEA are have concerns. We are looking at Section 57, the proposed amendment on Section 57, and the proposed amendment on Section 60 under Senate Bill 2348. The proposed amendment on Section 57 is specifically on the conversion of electric cooperatives. If I may just inform the honorable committee that while here the wordings of the original of as worded in the present IPIRA, the electric cooperatives are hereby given the option to convert into either stock cooperative under the Cooperatives Development Act or stock corporation under the revised corporation code. This has been amended by Section 32 of RA 105 amended by RA 10531, amending Section 32 of PD 269, which specifically provides that the option of the electric cooperatives is not just limited to registering as a stock corporation under the SEC or a stock cooperative under the Cooperative Development Code, but the option to remain as a non-stock, non-profit, NEA registered electric cooperative. So the three options have been made clear as against the provisions in IPIRA, and I'm looking at the proposed the proposed amendment here. It does not harmonize with the wordings of 10531, giving the electric cooperatives the three options and not just the three, not just the two options. So
Can I just make a quick comment, no? Your very detailed observations are duly noted,
Yes.
but these kind of observations we will discuss in the TWG.
yes, ma'am.
So here, I don't need to get all those because we won't have time to listen
Yes,
to all the, but in general, when you just say, you know, there are provisions here that are contradictory to current, the current law, that's good enough for us, no? And then you can submit your position paper for the detailed, because we don't even have a working draft yet.
Yes,
So-
ma'am. I'm just taking up, I'm just trying to take the chance on of my
Yeah.
5 minutes.
But it won't be duly, I mean, it's noted, but now's not the time for us
Oh, yes,
to
ma'am.
go through each line, so.
So we will just be doing
Yeah.
that. Well, in general, ma'am, we will be submitting our position paper considering that the particular concern of the National Electrification Administration are the proposed amendments under Senate Bill 2348, which points out several provisions in the IPIRA. And we will just be pointing at one by one. Now, for purposes of the ERC, we are, again, as I have already stated earlier, we are in full support, especially on the objective that all the applications of the electric cooperatives will be speed up at the
Yes.
present rate.
So
it
that's
is going.
that's the general statement that the
Yes.
committee wanted to hear, no?
Yes.
And what I don't mind giving you free time to do is if you wanted to share one or two examples again, so that the general public will understand. Like, do you have examples to share with us na nag-apply ng ganito? Yung I was really actually going to tell you, Sec Sharon, na let's let Nea elaborate on the general observations that she was already saying. And I know some because of discussions that we've had with Nea, but now's the time to share that, no, na yung nag-apply ng ganito, imanabot ng 5 taon, nag-triple na yung presyo. Hindi, you know, are you prepared to share some of those? Because that is what people need to understand, eh. An acknowledgement of the issues, and then I will ask ERC, do you agree? Is it correct? Oh, it's correct. So, nagsasuffer yung mga cooperatives natin, hindi sila makapag-deliver ng maayos na serbisyo dahil na pwede sigurong ayusin pa, maigaganda pa natin kung if we can restructure ERC. That's what I need to get out of this hearing. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, what has been brought to the National Electrification Agency is the general sentiment of the majority of the electric cooperatives whose specifically applications for power supply agreements, approval of power supply agreements, and approval of capital expenditures have been with the ERC in several years. Although I do not have the details of the specific or the individual electric cooperatives as to when those PSA had been submitted or filed with the ERC, as well as the CAPEX applications, but we can provide a detailed info on
Yeah.
that.
Okay. So this
Yes.
is what I want to hear, everyone, no? And you're all more experts. You are more. You definitely have been around longer than I have. But this is what we need to put on record so people understand. You have a power supply agreement that locks in a certain price for, let's say, the electric cooperative or for any other distribution utility over a period of time. And that is roughly what, 20 years? 15, 20 years? Okay. If they don't have that, then they will have to buy on the market, which tends to, not always, but may tend to be more expensive. Am I correct? So that's what you have to explain. So para alam ng tao na, kaya pala, so itong power supply agreement, pag hindi yan napirmahan, hindi yan na-approve, then yung nagsusupply ng kuryente sa akin, sa bahay ko, bibili siya dun sa ibang market na malaki ang chance na mas mahal. So, mas nagiging mahal. Tama ba? So, I think that's the discussion that we need to have. Kasi, I already understand it, but the public doesn't understand it. So, what's the purpose of this hearing? Maintindihan nila why we're spending time on this. So, I need you, and because you're experts, I need you to tone it down a little bit so people can understand. Then we go into the very heart of it, no? So, and I also remind when we're having hearings that let's try not to use acronyms because not only may the chair not know it, thankfully I know what PSA means, but the public doesn't know it. So let's try to help people understand what our hearings are all about. Okay? So, am I correct? You can add to what I said.
Yes.
You can change what I
Yes,
said.
thank you, Madam Chair. As I have mentioned earlier, the power supply agreements, well, when an electric distribution utility enters into a power supply agreement with a generation company, then it has to go through the process of filing it with the ERC, and then meanwhile, the ERC, if it cannot give immediately its final approval, it issues a PA, or the provisional authority. So the provisional authority actually, because of probably the lack of manpower of the ERC, which is now being addressed through the proposed amendment, as well as the composition of the commission, then it really takes time for them to issue the final approval. So
The provisional authority is issued how soon?
Under the law, Madam Chair, Your Honors, the provisional authority could be granted 30 days from filing, the earliest, and until the 75th day from filing.
So that is SOP. Between the 30th and 75th day, there is going to be a provisional authority.
Yes, Madam Chair, Your Honor.
So all the time, not even more often than not, all the time, there will be a response, not later. There will be authority granted not later than 75 days if it's not rejected. Is that correct?
Even if rejected, within the 75th day, we need to inform
Okay, so
them.
within the not later than 75 days, you will either reject or give a provisional authority.
Yes, Madam
Okay.
Chair.
So what is now the danger when it is so then these distribution utilities cooperatives will be now working with a provisional authority. And how does that affect the consumer when they only have a provisional authority?
The consumers will be supplied because the contract will be implemented. The problem with the provisional authority is on the part of the investor sometimes because it's a provisional authority. They don't know the final rate yet, whether we will grant what they applied for or whether we will reduce it because we cannot give them more than what they paid for. We will only be able to give them up to the amount that they paid for. Madam Chair, if I can make one more example with regard to the provisional authority. Let's say that a certain plant borrows money for it to put up the plant. Sometimes the bank will require them, you get a provisional authority first
Yeah.
from the commission before I
They
lend
loan
you
the
money.
Okay, that's a
So-
very important thing for people to understand because it's a very costly industry, right? I mean, it's very high it's capital intensive,
Yes.
and yet I go back to Nea because it's Nea actually that has the floor, no? For your for the what do you call this, for the applicants, because they're just cooperatives, they are limited by the electric cooperative law. on the kind of investments they can make, correct? So that's why they can't just go to the bank and ask for any amount. The banks will clearly ask for, tama ba? But the private entities have more leeway, but if they're getting a loan, then of course the bank has a say because it's the bank's money.
Ma'am, is the generation company that seeks out a loan from the bank, they are entering into a power supply agreement with the electric distribution
Okay,
utility.
but I'm referring to the scenario I had in mind is if the DU and the electric cooperative in particular has capital expenses to be made. Hindi sila umutang? Di ba uso yun?
Unless,
Or sa inyo sila umutang?
well,
Sa inyo,
NEA
sa inyo
provides
pala. Okay.
the
Because I'm
financial
just trying to
assistance.
understand the industry practice. So they don't, it's not typical that they would go to a bank. They would go to NEA.
They will go to NEA first.
Okay.
And because NEA offers a very competitive
But
interest rate.
NEA will also
But we
ask
cannot
about
provide
your- Correct.
full requirement.
So then do they go to the banks?
Yes, they,
So they do too. So balik din ako dun sa scenario ko na kayo naman yung nagbigay ng example na the bank will require. So I'm just
that's on, ma'am, that's on the part of the generation company, not
Madam
the DU or the electric cooperatives.
Madam Chair, if I
so
may.
banks will never don't care if there's a PSA if
I think, Madam Chair, we have to distinguish. The loans by the GenCos from private banks would be for the power supply agreements. The distribution utilities, especially the electric cooperatives, they usually borrow money from NEA for their capital expenditure projects.
Kaya nga, so alam ko na I already know that NEA cannot. So I'm asking what is the industry practice? What happens when they cannot? Okay na yun na yun. Hindi nga uso, they don't go to banks. Is that what you're saying?
Well, as already established, ma'am, the NEA is mandated to extend financial assistance, but because of the limited
Exactly. You
equity.
already said that. That's
Yes,
why
ma'am.
I'm asking. So what happens when which will happen that they cannot get the financial assistance they need? What happens?
Then they go to the commercial banks,
Yun
ma'am.
nga lang
Yes,
tinatanong
ma'am.
ko.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm driving home the point that so they'll have to go to the banks. What will the banks ask for before
But
the
for
bank
purposes
can
of,
grant?
yes, ma'am, if I may, the reason why I'm telling earlier that if it is in the subject matter of the PSA, it is not the electric cooperatives that seek out
And no,
loans.
then,
It
you've
is
told
the,
me 3 times,
yes,
and I've
yes,
heard
ma'am.
it.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I'm trying to understand the whole scenario where the cooperatives are left in a situation where their first go-to, which is NEA, cannot provide them with all the financing that they need. What is their next step? The bank. And
Yes,
then,
ma'am.
what will the bank ask for? I am driving home. Ako na lang magsasabi ng point na gusto kong i-make. Yung point that I'm trying to make is, does ERC's inability to come up with decisions affect the financing of a cooperative? That's my question. Because if the answer is no, then I'll just go to another question.
Yes.
Does it? Yes or no?
Ma'am, insofar as PSA, then we have already settled that it's with the with the GenCos. Now, for purposes of the CAPEX, capital expenditures, ma'am.
Yes.
So
What's the
halimbawa
answer?
po nag-file ang isang electric cooperative for capital expenditure approval, and
Yes.
it's taking quite a long time. So you know,
Yes.
in-example kanina ni Yusek Garin, yung presyo ngayon, edi kung matagal yan na, kung aantayin yan, ito lang muna ang presyo ng kanilang mga pangangailangan. So, maapektuhan po kung sa katagalan, dahil mag-akyat po yung presyo na. Yung presyo at the time they filed the CAPEX application to the time that it has been approved, iba na po. So, dun ho papasok yung epekto insofar as especially on the limited finances of the electric cooperative and also the limited capacity of NEA to lend out.
Or for example, let's just say maliit lang yung hiningi, nabigay naman ng NEA, sa tagal nga ng approval, kinulang na, dahil tumas yung presyo. I'm just trying to give you scenarios. I'm just trying to, apparently I'm not able to elicit from you the response I'm getting. No, I may not be explaining myself well enough, but that's all I'm trying to get. Na is the ERC able to timely respond such that you the in particular the cooperatives get the approvals they need so that they can get the financing that they need. Yun lang yung point ko. Anyway, I think we've established that already. Yeah.
Madam Chair, simple put, reklamo ng mga co-op minsan yan, nagra-rust na.
Kinakalawang na.
Kinakalawang na, hindi pa
Yeah.
na-approve.
What
Parang
I'm trying to understand here, I need you to give me scenarios that will help the committee justify the changes you will make, which will also require DBM approval. When you say, I need more technical people, I want to put in place more director level technical people so it doesn't have to go to commission, I need to understand what are these scenarios. That's why I'm asking these kind of questions. Okay? Yun nga, yung kinakalawang na, oo, okay, sige. Maybe later on, because I have a couple of examples in my head, but I think we can move on for now. But at a later point, I'll ask those questions to again help me understand, because when ERC asks for periodic structuring, I don't even know if there's such a thing. May ganun ba? I've not heard of periodic. We pass a law changing the structure, giving more positions, and there's a little bit of leeway to fill in positions, obviously, but it's not really a restructuring. No, once we approve a structure, that's the structure. So anyway, you can elaborate on your requests later on. Those are the details, naman. Okay. Anything that you want to add, Attorney Lee?
For now, ma'am, that's really the main reason on why we are supporting
Sige.
the
Maybe what
restructuring
you
of
can
it.
do is you can submit to us summaries of issues brought to your attention, which I'm very sure you are all, NEA is very knowledgeable of about exact kasi siguro sa inyo it's so normal to hear this, no? But that needs to be submitted to the committee. So when we have debates, we can explain why we are making these kind of changes. So you can submit that na lang.
We will do that, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's go now to PEMC, Attorney Nidea.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to my colleagues and everybody in the room. Madam Chair, we welcome, as a stakeholder board and the entity that I'm representing, the Philippine Electricity Market Corporation, we welcome the amendment for the instituted in the IPIRA for the strengthening of the Energy Regulatory Commission. We welcome this development because it's really high time to have a very efficient regulatory entity, Madam Chair, considering that there are issues that need to be resolved insofar as conflicts of position between the ERC as the rate fixing body and the Department of Energy as the policy making body. Okay, because due to that conflict, Madam Chair, we are faced with the legal question, Madam Chair, of whether the WESM has to be operated by an independent market operator and a governance arm, because right now the DOE is already recognized and has set the policy for the WESM to have two entity, Madam Chair. But then again, that is the first legal issue that we are faced with. So an express recognition of the two entity system in the WESM through the IPIRA amendment would really settle the legal issue on this matter, Madam Chair. And that's our real concern with the ERC amendment. If it would be strengthened and the IPIRA can really put it expressly that there is a governance arm, which is PEMC, and there is the market operator, which is the IMAP right now, then that would settle this long-standing legal issue. And perhaps that would also, Madam Chair, help us with our issues on market fees, because we have market fees application with the ERC, Madam Chair, that until now has not yet been resolved.
Because of delay or not resolved because of jurisdictional issues? What?
It has been, I think we have market fees, Madam Chair, since 2015 that has not yet been resolved until now. 2018, Madam Chair, that has not yet been resolved until now. And again, in the issuance of those resolution, what is being reiterated by ERC is always that there's only one entity. The recognition of only a single entity, Madam Chair. And that is contrary, Madam Chair, to a Supreme Court decision already, which was secured by IMAP.
Okay. So there's a Supreme Court decision,
And yet the ERC market fees resolution, Madam Chair, has still limited it on their position. They've been consistent with their position, Madam Chair, of a single entity instead of two entities, Madam Chair.
sige. I'm a little bit lost now, so I have to ask ERC. Is there a short answer as to why this is still unresolved, or it's not a short answer?
Chair, the status is, I think, they're right. We have pending cases for determination. I think they filed MRs, and then a Supreme Court decision came. So we're trying to still, evaluate para po
Nag-evaluate pa kayo?
the MTF po kasi is yearly po siya. So 2018, 19, 20, and then pag nag-resolve po, kino-consider na rin yung later. And I think there are pending MRs, Chair,
There are pending MRs?
for the MTF applications, Chair.
Wait, pending with you.
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair.
Kakamot muna ako ng ulo. Okay? Off the record muna, okay? Off the record. Because I'm not that familiar, admittedly, I'm not an expert. I don't understand what is to be implemented and what is not being implemented. What is...
Madam Chair, for an ongoing concern like an entity like PEMC,
You
Madam
said,
Chair,
Hindi pa nila nire-recognize na the Supreme Court said there are two entities that have to be recognized. Is that what you're saying? They have not?
yes, Madam
have
Chair,
not,
because
okay.
they were IMAP filed for mandamus, Madam
Yeah.
Chair, and one of the elements of mandamus is right. So that recognition of having a right has been granted to IMAP already. So technically, there are two entities in the WESM, running the WESM, the market operator, and the governance arm, which is PEMC.
Yes.
But in the ERC resolution, the last ERC resolution on market fees, they tend to consider only one entity. Kumbaga, off the record naman to, pagkasyahin namin yung pera namin, kaming dalawa, pagkasyahin namin doon sa greenant nila.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
paano naman kami makakakaroon po ng quality of people to retain, quality of services to do, if sakal na sakal ho yung budget namin.
Okay.
So that is one of the reason of our proposal in the lower house, Madam Chair, if it would be possible to put in the IPIRA a provision where our market fees will not be less than 1 centavo per kilowatt hour, and then the same be reviewed every 3 or 5 years based on consumer price index.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Okay. no? Like I said, I have to be, we have to be disciplined in the issues that we take up. But I don't mind that you bring up any EPIRA-related issue because the hearing does include that, but the focus will be ERC. So you have made also your main comment for that, which is the rule-making power, and then you just mentioned now itong proposal nyo sa House. So I'll repeat, kung ano man yung proposal nyo sa House na gusto nyo dito, you have to submit it separately here because we look at the proposals that you submit directly to us, no? Thank you. Okay.
Yes,
Sige.
Madam Chair, we
Thank
will
you.
submit.
Okay. So, let's go now to Independent Electricity Market Operator, Attorney Nethercott.
Yes. Good afternoon, Madam Chairperson. Good afternoon also to Senator Gatchalian. So, ma'am, we have no specific comments right now on the specific provisions embodied in the several Senate bills insofar as the ERC provisions are concerned. No? But we would like to manifest our support for the general purpose of these bills so far as it tends to strengthen the ERC as an organization. The concern of the market, as already verbalized, articulated by Attorney Nidea, is on Section 30, particularly, well, part of it is, of course, market fees. What we intend to do is to just submit our position paper on the matter because, as the chairperson has already mentioned, we will first tackle ERC. But we are in full support of the purpose or the intention of these bills to strengthen the ERC, Your Honor. And we will support the committee with submissions of data, information, and whatever other submissions that will be required of us. That is all in the meantime, Your Honor.
Just to be clear, no, when I mentioned earlier that if it's a non-related ERC concern that you have on EPIRA, you can verbalize it now, you know, in general. You can write it as a position paper, or sometimes I know it's very, for lack of a better word, madugo. So you can also approach my staff and request for a meeting, and we can chat about it also. Okay, just to be clear, it's just that I'm trying to manage the few hours that we have here to focus on specific amendments that I need to hear from you on ERC strengthening. So thank you.
Thank you po, ma'am.
Okay.
On the topic of si Attorney Nidea, I remember may Supreme Court ruling na yan, di ba? Yung decoupling ng governance and ng operation.
Yes, yes, Senator.
And how come ERC is not? I remember you applied for rates, no? And the issue there before was ERC is not recognizing that two entities, no? But that has been long settled.
The decision is on appeal.
That decision-
ERC filed an appeal.
So ERC filed an appeal with the Supreme Court. So it's not yet final.
May I answer, Senator Gatchalian, please? Your Honor, the Supreme Court has already ruled on the motion for reconsideration. That case has already become final. No? There's already an entry of judgment. In that case, the Supreme Court actually upheld the policy direction of the DOE insofar as it mandated the transition, no, from the then PEMC to an independent market operator and the maintenance of a governance arm. So basically allowing for the two entity setup in the WESM at present. Now, the ERC, the last ruling of the ERC insofar as market fees is concerned is for the year 2018. That decision by the ERC is under reconsideration. We filed a motion for consideration. Actually, PEMC at that time was the applicant. What is pending right now are market fees decisions for 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. But in fairness to the ERC, for the year 2023, they have impliedly allowed for the two entity setup to proceed in the WSM, but unfortunately, as of this time, the market fee level is still insufficient, no, for the proper maintenance of the market. The 2024 application we heard is already under consideration and might be issued before the end of the year, so we're looking forward that it will approve, at least on a provisional, through a provisional authority, an approved level, so that the market can proceed funding its operations, Mr. Chairman. So the short answer to your question is the ERC still resisting the Supreme Court decision. The short answer is yes, because the last ruling that they issued, no, prior to 2023 provisional authority, is that they're recognizing one entity, and the WSM should only be operated by one entity. And it is contrary to what the Supreme Court has already decided on. And that is still under motion for reconsideration. Perhaps the commission will, we don't know how commission will later on rule on that, Mr. Chairman.
Ang tanong ko lang kay Commissioner Resi or sa ano, did the rate increase after the two entities?
The rate po, Mr. Chairman, no. Actually,
Is it the same rate is divided into two, or now there's an increase in rate because there's two entities?
there were years that it actually went down, Your Honors.
Despite the two entities.
Yes. For the year 2023, they allowed the provisional authority a level of around 648, if I'm not mistaken, Your Honors. That increase actually as compared to years 2017. No, because it was an approval for 2017 and 2018, but it was applied actually for the years 22 and 23, and the level set for those years was 400 something million, 420 million. I may be mistaken on the exact figure, but it's around 400 million, Your Honors, for two entities. So that was the budget of the market for the years 22 and 23. 2022 and 2023.
Just to be honest about it, this is personal. My fear before, when you split into two, the rates will go up, because now you have to fund two entities, one for governance, one for the operations, the market operations, the market operator. So my fear before was when you split into two, now you have to have to fund the two entities, and I think everyone had that fear during that time. But of course, the Supreme Court has already ruled into this matter, so it's just a matter of implementing it. And may I get the comments of ERC? Are you recognizing, first of all, the Supreme Court ruling?
Yes, Chair, and of course, we would like to take exception to that comment that we're resisting the Supreme Court decision. I think we are just trying to untangle the issues that have become so messed up because of the years that were involved. That's why we're still in the stage wherein we cannot have a final one. But as Dave said, we have tried to provide them with the budget every year of what they need. And sometimes we try to pick out items that they say they need to spend on, that we know is required in operating the market, and take it out individually and approve it. And we shared the observation that the fear was two entities would result to higher rates. That's why when we evaluated their application, even if with two entities, what we did was to take out those that we deem as redundancy, like two positions functioning one for one item. We try to take it out, but we're not resisting the Supreme Court decision. We're trying to find a way on how to implement it smoothly so that we can have a proper transition to a current market transaction fees after we have settled those pending 2018 to 2023. Thank you.
When this was being discussed, I remember making a comparison to the Philippine Stock Exchange. In fact, the Philippine Stock Exchange has only one entity, the Philippine Stock Exchange. No? both governance and both operating the market itself. So I was asking myself, why do we need two entities for the electric power market? But that's already water under the bridge. Eh. No, oh, nga, yeah. So rule na yung Supreme Court. Eh. And the, I'll consult the chair regarding that particular particular policy. No, it's a policy decision at the end of the day. So I think to move forward, Commissioner Resi, I think since the Supreme Court ruling is already there, pagalawin na natin yung mga application, no? With the caveat that, of course, the rates should not double. Kasi my initial reaction at that time, because there are two entities, the rates will double. No? But if the disclosure today from the gentleman that the rates will, some of the years will go down, then let's evaluate on that premise.
Madam
We
Chair,
submit, Mr. Chair.
Madam Chair, we also would like to manifest that ever since our applications have always been limited to not to less than 1 centavo per kilowatt hour, our rate. We have always maintained that, notwithstanding that we're operating under two entity system. The rate has always been that. And I don't know if it's right, but regarding the issue of redundancy in the entity, because what happened, Madam Chair, in their evaluation was they want one HR, one finance. How could there be one HR, one finance when there are two entities? That's the redundancy. But that's the redundancy. But we have maintained, Madam Chair, the rate, our rate really. We haven't breached the 1 centavo rate.
Thank you. Let's go now to Philippine Competition Commission. Attorney Tanate.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, and to Senator Gatchalian, and to everyone. So, first of all, Madam Chair, we support the measure to amend the IPIRA or the improvement of IPIRA. But just to put forward our main comment on this measure, while the IPIRA, Madam Chair, is specific to electric power industry, it is our position that cases related to competition must remain under the Philippine Competition Commission. It may be noted, Madam Chair, that under the Philippine Competition Act, the PCC has the primary and original jurisdiction in the implementation of and enforcement of the Philippine Competition Act. And accordingly, as an independent quasi-judicial body, we firmly believe that the PCC stands in the best position to implement the objectives of this IPIRA, Madam Chair. So that's all, Madam Chair, and we will submit our detailed position paper.
Madam Chair, if I can, yeah, but may sort of, there's no MOA, no, between the ERC and the PCC insofar as handling of competition-related cases.
Correct, Senator Gatchalian.
Is that
Yeah.
enough already moving forward? Because I know in the past that there are jurisdictional issues when it comes to competition.
Yeah.
Since the chair has already ruled that we will be enhancing the charter of ERC, Is it about time to institutionalize that division, and what are the pros and cons? I'm sure ERC has the I see the beauty of putting it in ERC because ERC has all the data. No? They collect data from from everyone, no? From the power plants all the way to the utilities, and the PCC will rely on ERC on those information, no? Those data. So, what are the pros and cons by with separating the competition jurisdiction, and do you propose to already institutionalize that in the proposed measure?
Yeah, first of all, Mr. Chair, we rely, Madam Chair and Senator Gatchalian, uh, we rely on the our position based on the Philippine Competition Act, where the PCC has jurisdiction over all competition matters. So that's the first one. And secondly, uh, it might, carving out that authority from the Philippine Competition Commission might weaken the PCC. And in this proposed measure, Senator Gatchalian, it appears that again the ERC will have jurisdiction over competition matters, which was the issue before between PCC and ERC. So I think it's okay in the IPIRA and the proposed measure to institutionalize the arrangement that we have now in our memorandum of agreement, but competition issue jurisdiction or the adjudication of competition cases must still, we think must still be with PCC, given that we have we build the capacity and expertise already in investigating, hearing and deciding on competition cases. Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Very interesting intervention. So it's also something that I think may be relevant to our priorities because what we really want to come out of this hearing, and I'll repeat, it's not the only hearing, but like when you hear the other resource persons, when you hear our reactions, you can, well, raise your hand. We still have time. You know, I can hear some other views, but you can also put it in a position paper. You can talk to our staff about it. But the goal really is to have very clear jurisdictional limitations for ERC here. I mean, expand whatever scope of powers they have, but also very clearly define it. So your intervention is quite interesting to me. I'd like to get more information from both parties later on, like examples of the involvement that you've also had, any concerns you have on their involvement. Do you just really not want them involved? But I'll save that for the round two. But noted ang ano nyo.
If I may add, the ERC can always investigate, but if they find any competition issue, they can refer to the PCC, which is consistent with the Philippine Competition Act, because the trigger of our investigation are three types now. So referral from the regulatory sector agencies, and then based on verified complaints by anyone, even the players, and motu proprio. So those are the three triggers. So to be consistent with the Philippine Competition Act, they can always refer the cases.
I guess that is the question. They can, but should they? Will they? Do they want to? So sana clarify natin 'yon, di ba? I think the legislative intent will be very important, and your input would be all valid, including all the other players in the industry. Okay, thank you. So let's go now to Philippine Independent Power Producers Association, Attorney Monteribano, and then please be ready after that, Reza. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Senator Gatchalian. Ma'am,
We only have 3 points in the interest of time. So the first one is that we fully support the Senate bills regarding ERC strengthening. We believe that they should have at least more fiscal incentives so that they have more opportunities for capacity building to retain actually good staff. Because the energy sector is constantly evolving. So they need to keep abreast with the changes as well and compare it with other jurisdictions. So we fully support that. We support their independence, their transparency, and their accountability, particularly because the generation sector has a lot of concerns. And I will just highlight a few that has been plaguing the industry for quite some time. So number one, I think it's already been said, our PSAs, it takes years for approval. Aside from the power supply agreements, we have our point-to-point connection, which we file with the ERC as well, or what we call the P2P. Ito ma'am, ito yung mga, we front load these costs. Inuuna namin yung gastos para makapag-connect yung isang generation facility to yung transmission line po to the grid. So para hindi ma-delay ang proyekto, inuuna po namin yung cost na yan.
In other words, even before you get approval for this, you go ahead and spend and actually do the connection.
Oo,
correct?
kasi ma'am,
Okay. Again,
yeah.
for the public to understand,
Yes.
I don't want to take time for people to understand this. So, yung nag-generate ng power, para mabigay niya yan sa consumer, kailangan siya mag-connect sa grid. May gastos yon.
Yes.
So, yung gastos mo na yon, eventually kasi, that goes into the price of the electricity. Eventually.
Yeah,
So, kaya yan, pinapaalam sa ERC.
Yes.
Tama. Ngayon si ERC, dahil alam nyo matatagalan ng pag-decide, kahit wala pa siyang approval, gagastusan nyo na yon. That's what you're saying.
Alam ni Asek Mario yan.
I'm
Yes, ma'am.
explaining this so that, like I said, a high
Maintindihan.
school student can understand this. So, ikakabit nyo yung generating company generation company will connect to the grid. May gastos na yon. And then, ano yun, mabibigyan ng provisional authority within 75 days.
Iba yung point-to-point.
Iba yun. Yung point-to-point, hindi kasama doon sa 75.
Iba yung point-to-point connection, ma'am. Kasi
Okay.
normally, kina-consider pa yan at the end of, i-evaluate pa yan kung considered siya as a transmission asset na ipapasa po yan or a connection asset. So, medyo madugo po yan. Pero yun lang, nilalabas ko lang dyan for,
It's
yeah.
okay. And I want to understand. So if there's no provisional authority, in the meantime,
Nakaano po yan, ma'am. Meron po kaming nire-report. Depende po yan sa mga
kasi
generation company when they apply with the ERC.
Yeah.
Pinapaalam naman po yan, ma'am, yung progress ng
Okay.
point-to-point connection kasi minsan matagal po yung schedule ng hearing. Minsan po may mga technical papers pa na dapat madami pang tanong. So, I think si Comresi can, yeah.
Madam Chair, Mr. Senator, I think for P2P, what we did initially is we subjected it to summary proceedings so that it would not have to take the entire a year for us to complete the hearings and then we can give the authority. Secondly po, P2P is now under EVOS. So we have 270 days within which to resolve the application. Hopefully, we only have 2 P2P applications as of now under the EVOS portal. Wala pa naman pong nag-expire. We're trying to meet the 270 po. So, meron naman pong ano ngayon sa P2P. May improvements naman po on the resolution.
So, ma'am, hopeful kami dahil may EVOS and malaki po yung tulong. Pero syempre, we talk from, we're basing it from experience. Yung may mga pending po na P2P hanggang ngayon, may mga ganun po. So, talagang matagal ho. So, that's one. And then, meron po kaming mga grid code issues na hindi po rin nare-resolve kasi wala po tayong grid management committee din. So, matagal din pong nakatenga rin yan. So, that's one. And then, to my second point, so we support the ERC. Yes, ma'am.
Second point, this grid
Management committee po.
management committee doesn't exist.
As of now, I think 2018 po siya nung mawala. But for cases na we need to investigate ng medyo urgent, what we did was to create, I think, an interim grid management committee. So that one now is meron po doon mga kaso katulad po doon sa mga panay na event, yon. But yung pong institutionalizing again that arm, that technical arm of the commission, wala nga po yun as of now.
Reason na wala siya?
I think before po ang naging issue po is yung creation niya because naging private entity po siya na nag-register sa SEC. Tapos ang mga naging members po are industry players din, mga GenCos and everything. And the funding comes from ano rin po, distribution utilities and the transmission company po.
But it should be ERC.
We tried to propose a new division po to DBM for purposes of, yun nga po, i-compensate namin yung nawalang GMC and DMC. Maging, ano na po, nasa loob na, naging kasama po sa structure, hindi pa lang po yun approved.
Was that part of your submission to the energy budget?
I think it's pending po with DBM. The restructuring po with DBM.
Pero normally kasi from my experience in the other budget committees that I chair, you work directly with the budget chair and then DBM para napupush din nung budget chairman yung priority nyo na yun. If it's a priority, if it's not a priority, di wala rin kayong support na nakukuha from the chairman of the subcommittee. FYI. Okay.
Yeah, just to also expound a little bit further, ma'am, yun nga, yung sa Grid Management Committee po, there is an interim but it only has limited scope in terms of investigating yung Panay issue, etc. But it does not have the authority to review the grid code, which has a lot of issues that we need to resolve. Particularly dun sa names ng ancillary services. Meron kasi yung 2016 grid code po, iba po yung terms, pero ang ginagamit po natin iba rin ngayon. So madami po siyang, alam po yun ni Asek Mario at ng mga engineer dito, madami po siyang kailangan talagang suyurin at tignan ng maayos. Pati po yung mga frequency, lahat po yan. Isa-isahin talaga. So yan po yung inaantay namin na kailangan pong ma-address. Kasi kung hindi po maayos yung ating grid code, medyo yung policy rin natin tsaka yung regulation, hindi rin magiging in sync, di ba po? So yun po, one of the things that I think is under the ERC purview. Number two, our number 2 point, most especially, is the public offer requirement. This has been pending since forever, and I think Senator Gatchalian fully knows about it, to the extent that it needed a bill. We have submitted, we maintain our position that the ERC can actually interpret this. However, yeah, we have we have submitted also to the Joint Commission, Joint Congressional Energy Commission, ma'am, for its opinion on the public offer requirement. Yeah, it's very important, ma'am, because this affects also our permitting, our COC, and we cannot, just continue doing the provisional authority, the provisional permits. So those things need to be addressed ASAP because it has been years, and we even took time to explain to a lot of administrations already how the energy business works and how the parent company works, how layering works, how business units and how developers work. So if there could be at least a resolution on this item, so our permitting will not be affected, and we would greatly appreciate it, ma'am. Third and lastly, we have some concerns also on Senate Bill 1612, which proposes the government's return to the power generation. We want to go back to the mandate of the EPIRA, which was passed to privatize the generation sector. So we all know that construction of power plants is very capital intensive, and we would like government efforts to focus on better policy building, and also better regulations and investment opportunities for the generation. There, ma'am. Oh, sorry. One more thing with regard to ERC, ma'am, and PSAs. We would like to see, and actually we maintain our position and support to the DOE, that the CSP policy is already good enough. As long as it is proven that all the participants in that CSP complied with the guidelines of the DOE, then obviously the mandate of the ERC is to just take a look if we fully complied with the CSP. To benchmark, I was alarmed earlier. Benchmarking is also very tricky because it depends on the technology of the power plant and the risk profile of the DU. So in that respect, maybe we can just discuss it, and we always work with the DOE anyway, but we fully support the CSP policy of the DOE, and we believe that that is already a good enough policy. It just gets tangled with approval because it's sometimes not honored or sometimes slashed, or the CSP. Yes, if you examine it to the very detail, we get it, yes, but the reason why the DOE is there because there's already a policy guideline, and if you comply with it and the mandate of the DOE, then ERC approval should already be ministerial in function, because they're supposed to work together, your regulator and your policy maker. So that's it, ma'am. Thank you.
Just because you already went ahead and mentioned actually the bill of Senator Gatchalian, Senate Bill number 486, which is removing the public offering requirement. Can I hear from DOE and ERC very quickly on this? Because this is a two-page bill, so this can be handled separately, and we can already anyone is welcome to submit their position paper if you haven't included that. But quickly, DOE and ERC.
Thank you much, and thank you very much, and good afternoon, Madam Chair and Senator Gatchalian. Yeah, the DOE fully supports the review of this policy. Yes, thank you very much.
Support
Of
nyo.
course, sir, kasama dun yung pagpo-process, including the processing. So we support that this public offering will be reviewed, and should it be,
So wala ka pang position?
no, we support for that bill, in short.
Oh, so you support. So you
Yeah, po.
support the removal of that requirement, the
Yeah.
public offering.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you prepared? Are you prepared? If you're not prepared, then tell me you're not prepared.
Actually
to
po
tell
kasi
me today.
it's outside po doon sa ERC bill, kaya ang DOE hindi nag-provide ng official
Okay, no
statement
problem.
dito.
So just let us know.
Thank
It's
you.
very simple. I don't mind if you get back to us on. You're right. We said we will prioritize the ERC regulation, so no problem. But do let us know. Anyone else is prepared to say something on this? So you can also submit if you don't want to take it. Yeah. Did you want to say something?
Madam Chair,
Attorney?
on the BOR, the ERC fully supports the bill po. The removal.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Thank you. So let's move on to RESA, Retail Electricity Suppliers Association. Mr. Roseus, you have 5 minutes, and then after that we'll go to Meralco, also Philreca. So let me now call on Mr. Roseus.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Senator Gatchalian. I'll keep it short based on the directions of the Chair. We support the strengthening of the ERC. We leave it up to the DOE and ERC to work on the details. However, we take the opportunity that we raise a concern on a provision that prohibits a distribution utility from operating also as a retail supplier. We will provide you the position paper, and we can take your offer that will meet your staff, because among the industry players, we are the newest one. Marami kaming nuances that I think we need to expound further, and it will take so much of the committee's time. So we'll just ask for a time with your office. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. We'll set that. Okay, so let's now call on Meralco, Mr. Fernandez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, Senator Gatchalian. We only have two major general comments. First, we support the strengthening of the ERC. We support proposals to provide additional resources and improve the processes of the regulator. If the industry needs timely investments, the industry also needs timely decisions from the regulators and the policymakers. We would also recommend, though, that because when you provide resources, it's usually to meet a certain objective, and this objective should be time frames in coming out with those decisions. So we already have the Energy Virtual One-Stop Shop and the Anti-Red Tape Act. They have time frames for decisions, but not all of the actions of the ERC are within the EVOS and the ARTA. So for example, CAPEX applications, PSA applications, rate applications, they're not within the scope of EVOS and ARTA. So our proposal is to prescribe the same time frames for ERC to act on those applications as already provided in EVOS and ARTA. So this will give us a better view of what kind of resources will be needed for the Commission to be able to act within those time frames. Second, Madam Chair, is to clarify the jurisdiction of the ERC with respect to other agencies. So one is the Philippine Competition Commission, the other is PESA, the other is DOE for direct connect applications, and the other is with regular courts for the criminal provisions of the Anti-Pilferage Act. So ngayon ho, there's some confusion over which entities are responsible for which activities. So like one example is the Philippine Competition Commission. So our proposal is really to clarify the delineation so that the industry also is not confused, and it will also serve to decongest ERC if we can clarify what can already be devolved to other agencies and reduce their regulatory burden. So we'll provide written comments for this, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that. Let's now go to Philippine Rural Electric Cooperatives Association, PhilReca, Ms. Clarice Santos, and then please be ready. PEPOA, do I say that right? PEPOA, and then NGCP. Okay, Ms. Santos.
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair and Senator Win. So, of course, we fully support the proposed amendments for the proposed Senate bills for the amendments of EPIRA, especially on enhancing the structure of ERC. But in addition to what was mentioned a while ago by Nia, we would just like to raise, of course, the one of the concerns raised to us by for our member electric cooperatives, which is the pending applications for the capital expenditures. So this is besides the power supply agreement. So as of date, out of 121 electric cooperatives, we have 62 electric cooperatives with pending applications for CAPEX. So out of these 62 electric cooperatives, one application goes as far back as 2011. So that would be around 13 years already. So although we are in direct coordination, the electric cooperatives and PhilReca with ERC, of course, what we also receive is only the concern on their manpower and on budget. So there really is the concern on the electric cooperative side. Of course, they cannot improve on their distribution facilities. So that, of course, affects the service that they provide to the member consumer owners. That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that. So as I mentioned, let's go now to PEPOA and then after that NGCP. Attorney Ocampo.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Senator Gatchalian, and to the resource persons present in this hearing. PEPOA is in support of the proposed bill to restructure the Energy Regulatory Commission. We have just 3 suggestions on how we can implement this. Number 1, in the restructuring of the commission, we suggest that the Anti-Red Tape Authority be also tasked to assist in the restructuring of the commission, so that there will be a check because in restructuring there is a tendency for the regulator to micromanage the operations of the regulated entities, and this micromanagement tends to increase the cost of compliance of the regulated entities, so much so that they have to put up their own compliance department. No? So, so in uh, uh, tasking the ARTA to assist the Commission in restructuring, we can perhaps filter out those regulations that are already bordering in micromanagement. Secondly, with regards to the cases that are pending before the Commission, the nature of cases pending before the Commission are quasi in rem, meaning the decisions of the Commission on these cases are binding upon the whole world. So uh, during the proceedings, the public is notified of a case that is filed before the Commission. So the public is given the opportunity to participate in these public hearings of these cases. Now, uh, more often, these cases, when they are heard by the Commission, no intervenors or oppositors come in to register in these public hearings, except maybe for the bigger ones like Meralco and GCP. But for the other utilities, when their cases are heard before the Commission, there are hardly any intervenors or oppositors that are registering in the pending case. So I would suggest that for cases that there are no registered intervenors or oppositors, that they be also be considered under the summary procedure, meaning once these cases are submitted for resolution, that there be a timeline provided, probably 90 days or 180 days from the time they are submitted for resolution. And if there is no action from the Commission, that they should be deemed approved already for implementation. So that can take out a lot of the backlog at the Commission. Now, finally, the third suggestion, if the committee will consider, is that in the filling up of the vacancy at the Commission, we would suggest that priority consideration be given from the rank and file of the Commission instead of appointing somebody from the outside of the Commission. The reason being is that the staff of the Commission have already been trained to do regulation and rate making. So they already have a working knowledge of the subject matter. And when they are appointed to become a commissioner, they do not have to go through a learning curve. Well, the power industry is a very complicated industry, so that if you appoint somebody from outside the commission, they have to study the industry and the dynamics, and they have to study the technical matters such as rate making. So it will take time for them to get familiar with the subject matter. And this is probably one of the main cause of the lag in the resolution of pending cases. So those are the three suggestions that we have for people. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you also for all of that. So let's now go to NGCP, Attorney Leonor Alabanza, and then please be ready, NPC and NTC.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Senator Gatchalian. NGCP is a highly regulated entity. In fact, I think our last regulatory reset process was approved in 2009, and that ended in 2015. So we are now working on an interim allowable revenue, and this revenue is very important to us because we are revenue capped. We welcome any improvements to the ERC structure especially if it will result in an objective, timely, and fair regulatory process, considering that we have around 115 pending CapEx projects with ERC. Some of them have already been completed and energized, many of them ongoing. And the timely action on these projects is now made more relevant in view of the ERC, of the Supreme Court ruling prohibiting NGCP from implementing projects without ERC approval. So that underlines the importance of the regulatory process for the transmission service provider. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that. NPC, Miss Beverly Estela.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair. I'm Bernadette Rivera, Manager of the Strategic and Business Planning Division of NAPOCOR. Senator Win, good afternoon po. On the part of NPC, we fully support the proposal to strengthen the governance structure of the ERC. Our long-standing issue with the ERC pertain to the timeliness of our rate applications because, Madam Chair, it is the National Power Corporation that's administering the universal charge for missionary electrification. So kami po yung power provider sa mga maliliit na isla, tsaka off-grid islands. And in these areas, it's the NAPOCOR and the private power providers po ang providers ng kuryente doon. On the part ng NPC, ang naiiwan na lang po sa amin yung mga maliliit na mga isla at saka mga lugar na mga hindi po kinuha ng private sector. So yung mga malalaking isla po katulad ng Mindoro, Palawan, Masbate, Catanduanes, mga private sector na po ang nandyan. At ang role po namin ay yung pagbibigay sa kanila ng universal charge for missionary electrification subsidy. At on the part naman ng NPC, may pangangailangan din po kami para i-maintain yung operations namin sa missionary areas na to. Yung long-standing issue po namin sa ERC, we have rate applications as far back as 10 years ago, and this was emphasized noon pong 2022 when we had a fuel crisis, noon pong nagkaroon ng Russia-Ukraine war, and that's because 99% of the generation in these missionary areas are diesel generated. Kaya po nung tumaas yung presyo ng fuel, ay talaga naman pong affected kami doon, and we made a lot of lobbying for both houses of Congress, the lower house and the Senate, with regard to our deficit in the budget. And ang worry lang po namin with regard to the timeliness of the approval of applications, yun pong scenario namin noong 2022, nung nagkaroon kami ng deficit. In fact, tumawid po yun ng 2023. At dahil hindi po kami nagkaroon ng timeliness ng approval sa UC, kinailangan po ng gobyerno na mangutang ng 15 billion para lang tustusan yung pangangailangan, not just for NPC but also the private sector. Ang worry lang po namin, ngayong 2025, ganun na naman po ang scenario dahil we have rate applications as far back as 2017 that's pending with the incurred cost na po kasi ito, Madam Chair. So, nire-recover na lang po namin, and kung hindi po kasi timely yung pag-approve, naging in question po yung sustainability ng operations, not just for NPC but also the private sector. So, nagsalita na po yung presidente namin, we need 11.5 billion by 2025. At kung hindi po kami makakuha ng approval sa lalong madaling panahon, ay mapipilitan po kami magkaroon ng rotational brownout siguro kung hindi mapupunaan yon as early as March of 2025. And it's not a good scenario, Madam Chair, because it's an election year for next year. And the good news, Madam Chair, and we had word already from ERC, may inaayos na po silang approval na ilalabas, and we're just hoping, Madam Chair, na sana timely yung paglabas na yon within the year para po pumasok na yung cash flow as soon as possible para po maibsan yung deficit na ina-expect namin within first quarter of next year. Other than, Madam Chair, other than the rate applications, ang other concern na lang po namin is yung permitting requirements na nabanggit naman po ng ERC kanina, and not just for for example, the COCs and the permit to operate for the SPAG plants, but also yung nakapending din po ng new power providers with them, because that's also the basis for us to provide them the subsidies, the UCME subsidies that they require for their operations. Nagiging system lang po, it's not just for NPC, pagka po nagkulang yung pera para bigyan ng subsidy, even the private power providers, pati po sila tumitigil yung, or nagbabadya na tumigil yung operations pagka po hindi sila whole. So yun po sana yung tulong na gusto namin, Madam Chair, Senator Win. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much. So let's go to National Transmission Corporation, Engineer Lanes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Senator Win. As far as Transco is concerned, we likewise support the proposed bill to restructure the Energy Regulatory Commission. Now, also as already discussed by Attorney Ann of PIPA, we would like to manifest that since it is part of the ERC's function to issue or issue this Philippine Grid Code and Philippine Distribution Code, of which there used to be this Grid Management Committee and Distribution Management Committee that takes charge of the amendments to these two codes. We would like also to propose that in the bill to formally create these two organizations, which will be under the direct supervision of the Energy Regulatory Commission. We will submit our formal comment on this, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's now hear from PISAM, Mr. Dennis De La Serna.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Senator Win. We have a few comments. Number one, we are in support of the ERC restructuring bill. I would like to add there that maybe a formula can be provided for the fiscal autonomy that ERC is asking for. Number two, with regards to Ms. Rivero's comments on their role, I also wanted to highlight that their role also is with regards to watershed management, and there are also pending applications for the universal charge for environmental charge, which are pending at the ERC, and the monies are also pending at PISAM. Now, purely for a PISAM concern, Madam Chair, if you allow me, the EPIRA provision on separation and benefits. For the corporations created under EPIRA, they do receive separation benefits, but for PISAM, which for the corporate life that ends in 2026, we do not receive a similar benefit. So we're seeking an amendment wherein for corporations that have an end of life or a restructuring or a reorganization, separation and benefits are also given to those type of corporations created under EPIRA. Thank you, Madam Chair, Senator Win.
Thank you. And then I think this is our final speaker, final resource person today, Center for Energy Research and Policy, Attorney Noel Baga.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairperson and Senator Gatchalian. We have the following comments and recommendations. We support the Senate bills on strengthening the ERC. We propose the establishment of a consumer protection office, consumer advocacy office within the ERC, which would assist consumers in the filing of complaints and actions before the ERC and represent and appear on behalf of consumers before the ERC. There have been previous legislative bills in previous Congresses regarding this consumer advocacy office, and we are hoping that it would be passed this Congress, Madam Chairperson. We support the removal of the public offering requirement for power generation companies. We oppose the government participation in power generation. We also propose that we also propose for the ERC to be required to amend the Philippine Distribution Code and the National Grid Code. We believe this is urgent, Madam Chairperson. On the amendment of the Philippine Distribution Code, we proposed strengthening the ERC's regulatory powers over grid management and operations of the system operator, of the transmission system operator, including a review of the automatic load dropping procedures and the manual load dropping procedures within the PDC. There was much controversy on this, Madam Chairperson, during the Senate hearing in January 2024 regarding the Panay Island total blackout for 4 days. And one of the main issues was whether the system operator, the NGCP, was required to undertake automatic load dropping procedures or manual load dropping procedures earlier. So there was much debate over this, and this needs to be clear within the PDC. We advocate for stronger ERC regulatory powers over power plant maintenance and operations. Several studies indicate that almost half of our power plants are more than 20 years old, and we have seen several times, Madam Chairperson, how several power plants simultaneously break down, Madam Chairperson. So we think that the public deserves better than this. We advocate for stronger ERC regulatory powers over ensuring the timely completion of grid interconnection projects. For example, regarding the Cebu Negros Panay Island interconnection project, this was delayed, Madam Chairperson, for 2 years before it was completed, Madam Chair. And many studies indicate that had this CNP3 interconnection project been completed on time, perhaps this could have helped prevent what happened in the Panay Island total blackout. So we recommend those. We also recommend, Madam Chairperson, the amendment of the WESM rules to increase competition, lower electricity prices, and to prevent market collusion and market irregularities, Madam Chairperson. We still have very high electricity prices in the Philippines. Studies indicate that WESM's prices are still very high, and measures have to be adopted to reduce these prices and to address market irregularities, Madam Chairperson. There have been studies which indicate that there are allegations of hoarding or deliberate withholding of power supply. So we seek to address these issues, Madam Chairperson. And we also propose for the amendment of the competitive selection process, the bidding rules on the power supply procurement of distribution utilities, procurement of power supply from power generation companies, Madam Chairperson. We hope that the CSP bidding rules would be amended to establish a transparent and uniform bidding rules that would ensure minimal discretion on the part of distribution utilities and would prevent the tailor fitting of bid requirements on the part of distribution utilities in favor of their affiliate power generation companies. And we would like to propose for the mandatory attendance or participation of representatives of the affected local communities concerned during the CSP competitive selection process, bidding process, which affect their franchise area, Madam Chairperson. These are our recommendations, and we shall submit a position paper on this, Madam Chairperson. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Yeah, of all the resource persons, you're the one I will require to submit a position paper. Sa dami ng sinabi ko, hindi ko na nasundan lahat. Yung iba, 3 points, kaya pa ng brain ko ma-absorb. No, they're very good points. That's why I do want to see it in writing. Thank you. Thank you. You have the floor. Questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Resi, I think we can sum up the reactions of our resource persons. Ay, tumatango ka na, I think alam mo na yung sasabihin natin. Yung delays in the approvals, also delays in the reset. No? I think the reset is one of the most important activities of the Energy Regulatory Commission because it gives, first of all, it determines the appropriate rates that the entity should charge, and at the same time there's an opportunity to lower down the rates because of the variables in the formula. And both the approvals of the PSAs and the others and the resets are delayed. So since we're now talking about strengthening ERC, how do we, or what proposals do you have to finally eliminate all of these delays? Because like what our chairperson said, the delays have repercussions. It has domino effects, in project financing, in planning of the actual putting up of power plants, even new power. It affects all of this. So finally, what proposals do you have in order to completely eliminate the delays and correct all of these um, deficiencies that the ERC is experiencing now and in the past.
Uh, Mr. Madam Chair, Mr. Senator, I think it's embodied in the two major points that we raised earlier. First is to allow ERC to conduct periodic restructuring and reorganization, which, for clarification with the team, what we were envisioning is at least every 5 years we are able to reassess our complement and do some adjustments. Also, with the limited fiscal autonomy, which will provide us at least budget for some employee benefits, because as I've said, we are now competing with the private entities within the industry when it comes to salary levels and benefits that they are able to offer to the staff from the Energy Regulatory Commission. And also, I think our focus now will be on at least making our staff enough in number and also enough in quality or competency.
When I was looking at your budget for the last many years, I noticed that you hire consultants. You have, I think, 400 million pesos purely on consultants. This is for resets, this is for other things, but the activities are recurring, meaning resets are done on a periodic manner. No? The approvals of PSAs are done on a periodic manner. My question is, why not build our own capacity? Because the hiring of consultants also take time. You have to undergo public bidding. Diba? And I understand in some cases there are failure of biddings, no, that happen. And in effect, it delayed the entire process. No? So is it possible that we build our own capability, meaning get engineers, get economists, get a lot of technical people, because largely these are technical activities, no? Can we build our own technical team so that we do away with the bidding, and since we do it on a recurring manner, in effect, in sabi nga ni Attorney Rani, you build your expertise and your competency over time rather than getting different consultants whenever you have a reset or you have an activity.
Chair, Madam Chair, Mr. Senator, in terms of consultants po, the reset, the one for the distribution utility and the transmission company, we do employ consultants po. And to address yung sana magkaroon ng knowledge transfer so that we have an in-house na experts na nakalagay po sa bawat kontrata ng consultancy na magkakaroon dapat nun. Ang idea nga po is, pag iniwan kayo ng consultant, kahit pa paano, meron na kayong na-acquire na competency on the expertise na hinire nyo siya for that. Sa ngayon po, yun lang po muna yung nagagawa namin. But hindi po kasi minsan nangyayari na yung mga na-train na, nag-stay. Yun po yung mga nagiging problema namin. Minsan nagiging, lang po kami, possible source of assets for other companies once we have already trained them. Marami po kami naging experience na gano'n. Classic example na lang po is when we did the PBR, we were 10. I was one of the original PBR. But after the first regulatory reset, parang 2 or 3 lang po kaming natira. So, lahat po nakaalis na. And doon naman po sa ibang task namin, we are fortunate enough to have grants and aids po from other agencies para yun pong mga rule-making na medyo nagte-take ng time ng staff na papastudy po namin through that consultant given by either USAID, UNDP, ganun po, sir. As of now, yun pa lang po yung nagagawa namin. But yun nga po, our hope is kapag nakakaroon kami ng reorg and we have the right salary and benefits for our people, we can hire the right people and at the same time have budget to continuously train them for competency, and by that po, we will be able to do away with consultants po.
I remember one of the proposals when, Madam Chair, I actually drafted a ERC charter, an ERC charter. So it's a standalone charter that will hopefully strengthen the ERC. And I remember during the consultation with ERC, one of the proposals is to exempt it from the salary standardization law. The same with the PCC. No? Ang PCC exempted, di ba? Kaya mas mataas ang sweldo nyo sa amin lahat eh. No? No? Biro lang. No? But as a PCC is a regulator. Diba? ERC is also a regulator. No? And the reason why typically we exempt the regulator from the typical salary standardization is to make it beyond reproach, or make the regulator or to prevent the regulator to be captured because their salary is above industry, or their salary is above the typical salary grade of government. No? So I'm sure that will help. No? But is that still a proposal that you think can improve the capability, the retention? Kasi yun ang nagiging problema eh, retention of talent, developing the capability, and I would assume that's a function of incentives and the salary being given.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Mr. Senator, as I've said po kanina, we are exempted from the salary standardization law, but our rates are lower compared to other regulators po.
Sabi nga ni Chair, is useless in pagka-exemption nyo. Maybe we can put that in the charter ready, because Madam Chair, the total electric power industry is ₱500 billion. It's about 630 billion pesos and growing. No? As our economy grows, the electric power industry grows as well. But if you look at the budget of ERC, and tayo lang actually nag-increase nito in the last Congress, it napako na siya at 600 to about 900 million pesos. No? It's always the Senate that intervenes. We always add about 200 to the budget of ERC. But with 900 million pesos managing or regulating 630 billion pesos, it's really not enough. No? And because of the operational issues such as retaining talent, developing talent, we see a lot of operational problems in the electric power industry. You know? So we can embed all of those suggestions here in the amendments that the committee is doing, and the objective really is to make ERC efficient, capable, and responsive. You know? And let's take this opportunity, Commissioner, to finally strengthen ERC. I recommended to the Commission is to, during the budget season, during the budget hearing, is to mag-camping muna kayo to reflect, no, what changes you can make in order to strengthen the Commission. But I think now is the time. No? There's now an opportunity to finally strengthen the regulator, and I support that. I support a strong regulator. I support a strong, independent, as well as efficient regulator. Yan talaga kailangan natin. I think partly why the whole country is not realizing low power rates is because also the regulator, and with all due respect, with all due respect, is the regulator is not as efficient as what we want. May pagkukulang rin ng national government because we're not giving you the budget and the salary that you require. But I think that's the missing link in order to fully realize lower electricity rates. So let's take this opportunity, Commissioner. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So thank you everybody for your time. I need to commend everyone here. It's one of the first hearings that I didn't have to lecture someone to follow my rule, which is don't read your position paper to me. You're all very obedient resource persons, and I thank you for that. I think you're very used to articulating your needs, and that's why you were able to work within my parameters. I really appreciate it, because I will fall asleep if you read your position paper. The time to do that is when I'm alone with my team or wherever. The time here was to do exactly what we did in very efficient time. I'm assuming you're all very busy people, so I'm happy that we finished in a reasonable amount of time. We will suspend, and then we will have follow-up hearings or TWGs, because it is urgent for us to pass a bill that empowers, regulates, streamlines ERC's roles, jurisdiction, whatever is needed, and we are limited by the the reality that this is going to happen when the Senate is in the budget season already. So almost the entire month of November, we handle the budget, and then a bit of December. But the goal is to try to get this done before the year ends so that we have time to well, to get it done. I mean the bill, the committee report, and hopefully on the floor to start some debates, so we can pass this. I don't want to say December, but let's see, January. Yes.
For us to prepare our position in all the issues, are we going to include also the issues mentioned that are beyond the ERC chapter?
Yeah, so your priority is ERC. So I would suggest that everybody start focusing on that. You can also provide reactions to what you've heard from other resource persons. You may have made your point clear, but somebody gave a contrary and you want to rub it in that you oppose that. You can do that. Let's focus on ERC. For DOE and ERC, you may react to any. If you want, just put it in a separate position paper so it doesn't take as much time. But like Attorney Baga mentioned, a lot of issues. That's more than welcome. I'm happy to be, to understand these issues better, maybe have meetings to discuss this. But as I said, the priority is ERC. Okay? So thank you very much, everyone. I hope you still have the rest of your day to go back to work and prepare your final position papers on this. Thank you so much. This hearing is suspended.
So this public hearing is called to order. This is a joint hearing with the committees on Energy, Ways and Means, and Finance. On the agenda today are SBNs 217, 486, 1612, and 2348, amending the Electric Power Industry Reform Act